forward to supporting this further.
Jackie Dean.
Mr Speaker, the Arms Military-Style Semi-Automatic Firearms and Import Controls Amendment Bill sought to, and I believe has gone a long way to addressing some problems which we face. And one of those problems is that the vast majority of Category C licence holders who have military-style semi-automatic firearms are responsible enthusiasts of firearms, and they take a great pride and enjoyment in their sport, which involves their firearms down mostly on a shooting range under very controlled conditions, and indeed the conditions of their firearms licence, which I think is a Category C, and I can be corrected, but if I do recall, it is quite a stringent category of firearms licence, which requires the MECSA to be locked securely in a secured locked box. So while the vast majority of MECSA owners who have the required licence and the required storage for MECSAs, that's not the problem. The problem is the MECSAs that the police don't know about. And when those MECSAs are used and put into effect, it can be with devastating consequences for all of those involved, involving death and fear. So it is those MECSAs that the police cannot track that are the problem, which is why this bill has come to the House, because there is also a problem with definition of what constitutes an MECSA. The other problem which this bill addresses is that of the fake pistol being presented, and it happens almost on a weekly basis in New Zealand. The police are called out to what appears to be an armed robbery or an armed incident. It ends up that a fake pistol has been used, and it appears, the news of this appears in dairies and on a very frequent basis, and we read about it in the news. This bill addresses both those two issues. The Select Committee did give this bill a good deal of consideration, and it was a good process in my view. We made a number of amendments to the bill, and I'm going to start more or less where the previous speaker left off, and that was community input into firearms policy. Now, we had a very robust process of people coming into the Select Committee. We met in Christchurch, Auckland and in Wellington, and a number of the submitters expressed a frustration that they would like to have input into the arms licensing regime and that order of activity. And so the committee did look very closely at the request expressed by the firearms community of establishing a statutory advisory group, and that would include representatives from the New Zealand firearms community, who the police would consult before recommending regulations relating to the designation of MECSAs. The problem with that was that in doing that, that would limit the scope of the consultation and engagement with the sector, and it was felt that that perhaps was a little narrow in scope and would be of limited use. So I was very pleased to hear the Minister earlier this evening confirm that the police are actively looking at the establishment of a consultation group which would work on a full range of firearms policy issues. Now, that was indicated to us at the time that we were working with the police on the committee stage of this bill, and it is very encouraging to me to hear that the police indeed are continuing their work on this issue. The Select Committee made a number of changes. We modified the definition of an MECSA to provide greater technical accuracy and also legal clarity. It was determined that a very accurate definition of MECSA should be included in the bill, not only so it made it very clear to police and firearms users what constituted an MECSA, but also to future-proof the regulations so that changes in design of MECSA could be taken into account under the bill. We made clarifications to the provisions relating to that magazine capacity. Hitherto, magazines could be in the Rambo-style banana-shaped magazine. This committee is recommending that changes be made to that. Importantly, and as I mentioned when I started my speech, amendments to the bill to make it clear that the new description of restricted air guns, which will now be required a permit to import, will hopefully tighten up on the incidence of fake air guns being presented to dairy owners and in other instances. This bill does not require a permit to import parts for air guns, but merely the air guns themselves. A number of submitters did express concerns about changes to Clause 11 of the bill to extend the regulation-making powers in Section 74 of the Principal Act. So what the committee has recommended is another layer of parliamentary scrutiny to apply to 3 of the 4 proposed regulation-making powers. And so these are for regulations declaring particular makes and models of firearms or firearms of a stated description to be MSSAs, and regulations declaring particular features of firearms to be features of MSSAs. So an amendment was also recommended to the Arms Regulations 1992 to ensure that licensed dealers keep records of restricted air guns received for sale, so tightening up on the requirements about air guns. Mr. Speaker, the provisions in this Act have been gone through, and it was pleasing to see that the Law and Order Committee worked very hard and cooperatively on this bill. I think we have returned to the House an improved bill, a bill in good shape, and I recommend it to the House.
Speaker.
Ross Robertson.